Well, hi there, class. I was just grading your assignment 1, the installation of your virtual machine, and a couple of things kept coming up over and over again, so I thought it might be a good idea to cover them here in a video for everybody's benefit. So let's take a look at my virtual machine. I've got my VirtualBox running in the background and then my virtual machine running inside of VirtualBox. So one thing that kept coming up was the size of the screen. Now on mine it's a pretty good size right now, but it could be maybe bigger if I were not on a large screen right now. If I were on a little laptop or something, this would be pretty small and difficult to view. Now you would think I could just make it full screen. So let's go up here to click View and Full Screen. And what this is telling me is that I can toggle back and forth between the full screen and regular by holding down the right control button and clicking F. The right control button is the host button. So host plus F, right control plus F. So I am aware of that, so I'll just go ahead and close that. So now I'm in full screen, but it doesn't look any bigger. All you notice is that there's no background now. The whole thing is taken up by this thing. So that really is not the full solution. In your case, you might actually even have scroll bars over here and have to scroll up and down to get to the start button. So let's fix that issue by making this whole thing bigger. I'm going to right click here in the desktop of my virtual machine, go down to Display Settings, and then I'm going to go down to the display resolution. Now this thing works backwards from the way the resolution usually works. On your host machine, if you make the resolution smaller, the screen is going to get bigger because it's going to take more screen space in order to get all those pixels in. However, in this thing it works backwards. So I'm going to make this bigger, 1152 by 864. Let's try that one. And yeah, it's a bit bigger. Let's try even bigger yet. I'm going to cancel those changes. Let's try 1280 by 1024. There, now that is pretty much the whole size of my screen here, so I don't have that scroll. If I wanted to play around with some more settings, I could even go farther. Let's try the 1600 by 1200. See, now it's too big and I can't see the start button. I have to move it up and down, so that's a little bit too big. So let's just choose one that seems to work pretty well for me. 1280 by 1024 seems to work about right, so I'll keep the changes. So by changing the virtual machine's resolution, the VM's operating system's resolution, I can change the size of this screen when I'm in full screen. Let's get out of full screen. I'm going to hold down the right control key, not the left one, but the right one, and click F. And now you can see even my window here is much bigger. However, yeah, it looks like now I have to scroll up and down a little bit. So maybe that was just too small. If I go into full screen, yeah, that might have been too much. Control F. So I think I will scale it back just a hair, one less. So rather than 1280 by 1024, I think I'll go to 1152 by 864. We'll keep that one. And now Control F. We'll toggle out of full screen. Now that looks pretty good. I can get to everything on here without having to scroll around. So that's one thing. The other problem that a lot of people have was speed. And in order to deal with this, you're going to have to turn off your virtual machine. So I'm going to go ahead and shut down my virtual windows. And we'll wait for this thing to close down. There we go. My window is closed down, and now I'm just in the VM VirtualBox Manager. So I'm going to select the machine. In this case, it's this Windows 10 machine right now. And I'm going to go to Settings. And now I'm going to go down to System. Now here I can adjust the base memory. I've got 4 gigabytes given to this. Now I have a 32 gigabytes on this machine. If I wanted this to be a little faster, knowing that I have 32, and you can see where the upper limit is here, I could go all the way up to 32, but that would be giving all of my RAM to the virtual machine, and you can see that this is in red here, basically saying don't go up in here because your host machine needs some as well. So it's warning you not to really go over this green mark right there. So let's just give it, I don't know, halfway up here like that. You can go whatever you want on that. The other one is the processor. And here you see I've got 32 cores in my computer. Now you're not likely to have 32 in yours. It's actually 16 physical cores, 32 virtual cores, and it's recommending that I not go over this number, 16 cores, which is about, that would be good. Typically I tend to keep mine at 4. If you're on a 4-core machine, you may want to choose 3 or 2, or just maximize this green here so that your machine will go faster. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and maximize this right here, and I'll go back to the motherboard and I'll maximize this one. I should get now pretty close to the fastest I can get in this machine when I start it up. So let's start up this machine and see what it looks like. Okay, it was a little slow getting this thing started, and that's probably because I was taxing my physical machine by leaving it just at the minimum amount of resources for the physical machine. But now once this thing's running, this should actually respond pretty fast, at least on my system. Now if you have a smaller system, maybe a laptop with only dual core or 4 cores, then you'll probably find that that it's slow. But for the most part, if I open up an application, you see it's pretty much instantaneous, and that's just because I've given a lot of resources to this virtual machine. Now, of course, if I was running more than one virtual machine, let's say I was in a server class and I was running a server or maybe a couple of servers and a client or two, I would have to scale back the number of resources that I gave to each one. So there you go. I hope that this is helpful.